New year, new wearable, IrisVision Live 2.0. Go. Welcome to 2024, and we are back with our first video of the year. And today we are looking at a brand new product that was just released, the IrisVision Live 2.0. This is the second generation of the very popular electronic wearable device, the IrisVision Live. For those that may not be interested.
If they're not interested, they're not watching the video.
How about for those that might not be aware of what these devices are? Basically, they're electronic magnification devices that you wear on your head, thus called wearables. If you're familiar with a CCTV or a video magnifier, then you kind of know what these devices do already. They give you the ability to increase and decrease magnification and change color contrast. You can take a look at past videos that we have done, especially on the IrisVision Live 1.0, which will allow you to see what is new with the 2.0. If you don't want to watch that video, no worries. We're going to be covering 3 categories today: the headset design, the control, and feature set of the new 2.0. So Luke, why don't you start us out with our first category?
Why, thank you, sir. All right, so first of all, design pros. Well, we have an entirely new headset, and with the new headset come some exciting new features. Let's take a look at the pros first with those. On the top of the headset here, we have 3 dials. We have 2 to the left and right, and we have 1 in the center. Those dials will allow us to correct for spherical prescription for each eye individually, which is the first time I've seen that particular feature. And in the middle, we have an adjustment for our pupillary distance. The pupillary distance is, of course, how far away your eyes are, essentially. And so you can adjust for that. People with larger heads tend to have their eyes spaced further apart.
What are you trying to say? I knew you were going with that.
Okay, another pro of the headset. We have this new cover at the front of the headset, which kind of hides the phone. So it's a little bit more stylish in that regard. You don't just see the phone here in the front of the headset as you did with the IrisVision Live 1.0. It's actually hidden behind this kind of plastic, door, I will say, and that has got the IrisVision logo on it. So looks pretty nice. So yeah, those are a couple of pros, Corey.
Yeah, I think that so for those that are familiar with the original IrisVision Live 1.0,
it's a mouthful.
It was using the Samsung VR Gear headset, right? If I'm not mistaken. So they were obviously relying on a third-party company for that product, and now IrisVision has designed their own headset. So obviously a pro to that is that they control it now. They don't have to worry about another company just saying we're done creating that and now you can't purchase it anymore.
Yeah.
So I would see that as a pro. I think if I'm not mistaken, and you'll know better, but it's a bit smaller, right? I mean, it's very close to the same size, but I think it's a teeny bit.
It's not enough to make it a pro as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, it's too similar.
More of a pro.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
It's slightly narrower, but nothing to write home about. Actually, one other pro that I did think of though is that the charging port is actually open here, and so it's very easy to have this connected to power while you're using it. Because obviously with these, the battery life is fairly limited. You're looking at a couple of hours, but with this one, super easy to plug it in while you're using it, and therefore use it for as long as you want to.
And I think this sort of falls under the headset, but maybe not. It probably almost falls more under our future category of feature set, but it is now using a Pixel phone versus the Samsung phone.
Yes.
And with that, and although I think the Samsung was still using it too, but as you were saying with the power being exposed, it is USB-C, so it's a lot easier plugging in, doesn't matter which way you're doing it.
Yeah.
On top of the benefits of the newer phone too.
Yes, which is primarily a better camera.
Yeah.
All right, that's the pros. Now it's time for the cons.
You come here for the honest truth, and that's what we give you. So we got to talk about cons of the headset design. I feel that the overall quality of the headset itself, the plastic, has a cheap feel to it.
It does, yeah.
Compared to the 1.0 headset from Samsung, there's just I guess I can't put my hands on it. I can't put my finger on what feels cheap about it, but it just has a little cheaper feel to it. Personal opinion, which is always right.
Yeah. Okay. A couple of other cons on the headset design. Number one, the straps which go over your head and which hold the device in place somehow are flimsier than the straps on the previous headset.
Okay.
So it doesn't feel as secure on the head. These are minor problems, by the way. This isn't anything major, but it doesn't feel quite as secure. But one thing that is relatively major is if you want to turn on the device, the only way to access the power button is by opening the front door here that the phone is inside and then holding down the power button on the phone. So the phone just sits in this door at the front, and like I say, the only way to turn it on is to basically take the phone out. Now it's not too hard to put the phone back in place once you've done that, but it's just a bit weird how you have to take the phone out in order to turn it on, since turning it on is such a fundamental action that you need to be doing. So.
Yeah, you can turn it off from the remote, which we'll talk about in a moment, but you have to turn on. Now I'm wondering if they'll do something, when the Live 1.0 came out, they also had a very similar issue where the power button was tucked underneath kind of the side, and they ended up creating a very, I think they used NASA to design a special tab for it, but I'm wondering if they'll do something similar here, although with the door being completely enclosed, it might be tough to do, but again, like you said, it's not a showstopper. It's just
it's an inconvenience.
Inconvenience, yeah.
All right, well, with that being said, let's move on to our next category, which is controls. Okay, on to controls, and first of all, let's start with the pros, because Cory, we love to be positive.
And we like to control things.
Okay, do it. Yeah. All right, so the controls are done through something known as the controller. Funny how
Would that
works.
be a remote controller?
It is a remote controller, yeah. So we have a wireless controller to use the device, as opposed to the previous controls which were on the headset with the previous version. So number one, Cory, what I like about this controller is we can use it in either hand. With the previous headset, the controls were all on the right side of the headset, making it difficult for people who didn't have the use of their right arm or hand to operate the device. With the remote control, we can use it in either hand, and therefore we solve that problem.
I like the overall design of the remote control itself. I think it feels good in the hand. The buttons are pretty easy to feel and distinguish.
Yeah.
The little trigger or Z button or whatever you called it earlier.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of clever in the way that they use it too. So for me, I think the remote itself is a pro.
I have one thing to say, Cory.
Yes.
I am not a fan, but we'll find out why in the cons section, because we're keeping it positive for now.
I like it.
Now, we did have a third pro.
Yes.
What was it?
Well, I'll use my voice to tell you about the third.
Apart from the remote, we can also use voice commands. Cory was experimenting with this earlier, and it seems to work really nicely. You can hold down the Z trigger, and then that will activate the microphone, and then you can say things such as saying the name of a mode to switch to it, or you can say Zoom 5 or Zoom 10 or whatever it might be. You can say flashlight on, all sorts of different voice commands there. And they're pretty snappy, and it seems to understand you pretty well, and it does what you've asked it pretty quickly.
Yeah, I didn't have really any issue. I think the hardest thing was just to figure out exactly what verbiage it wanted, which, if I would have took a moment and read the user manual or looked online, I probably would have had a better understanding, but it was very snappy, which I appreciate. There's nothing worse than giving a voice control and then waiting longer than it would take to just do it by the remote.
So annoying.
Instead. So time for cons. With every pro, there are cons, and we have to cover them. So for me, one of the things that is a con is that I'm not a big fan of and this kind of comes back to the headset piece that we were holding off on it, but because the phone just slides into the new headset and doesn't actually connect as it did with the Live 1.0, we now lose the ability to control the device from the headset. Now, you mentioned just during our pros section here that the older one had a touchpad on the right-hand side, and that was a con in the fact that it was difficult for people who maybe were left-handed or didn't have use of their right hand.
Yeah.
I agree with you on that, but what I don't like about the new 2.0 is that we only have the remote control. So two things. Number one, what happens if we lose the remote? Now we can't use the device anymore, which is a bit of an issue.
I will say, I think these are generic controllers, so you could probably buy replacements fairly easily.
You think so?
I believe so, yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. I mean, they probably sell extra remotes.
I would imagine. These have not been custom designed.
The remote. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that it doesn't make it nearly as hands-free as the 1.0 did. You have to have the device. You have to have the remote in your hand or in your pocket, and then you got to reach to get it. Or I guess maybe if you put it around your wrist. But either way, to me, it's a little less convenient to be working hands-free with the remote. So that's a con for me.
And I will roll into something along the same lines, which is the remote takes 2 AAA batteries, and the remote itself cannot be recharged, so you have to swap the batteries out. And sometimes I have a bit of trouble opening this compartment. There we go, I should get it. So a couple of AAA batteries in there. But ours seem to run out really quickly. Now, I don't know if that's normal or whether that was just something weird going on, but obviously if your batteries run out while you're, out and about trying to use the IrisVision, now you literally cannot control it until you've replaced the batteries. So definitely not ideal.
And we got our device right before the holidays, and we probably used it for a total of 3 hours? Not even? 2 hours?
Maybe closer to 2, yeah.
Yeah, and the remote batteries were dead yesterday.
However, we don't know for sure how much charge those batteries had in the first place.
But they were provided.
They were provided, but I don't remember if they were new in a packet or whether they were in the controller already. So I can't say for sure. So we just replaced them yesterday, so I guess we'll see. But on first impressions, it seemed like the battery life wasn't particularly great.
And again, this is our personal experience.
Yeah,
it might not be exactly what everyone else experiences. But
yeah. I thought we only dealt in the truth here.
That is very true.
So now I can finally do my rant about this controller. And my rant will start with the words, I hate it. Because of I know, I have strong feelings about this. A few different reasons. There is a touchpad on the top that we are supposed to use. We swipe to the right to zoom in and to the left to zoom out. We can also swipe up and down. It's so unresponsive. It's horrible to use. I was working with a client yesterday. They were just trying to zoom in and out. The most fundamental thing that you would want to do with a device like this, and they were struggling so much. They would swipe, 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 not doing anything. Eventually, it might increase in magnification. Swipe, swipe, swipe. Eventually, it might increase again. It was so inefficient and inconvenient. And I've had the same experience. I really do not like the touchpad at all. So that for me is a huge negative. And then we also have just a couple of buttons on here, and because there's only a couple of buttons, it does make it a little bit confusing to navigate some of the menus. We will get into that a little bit more when we do the feature set segment. But yeah, for the most part, touchpad, hugely inefficient and poor, in my opinion. So thankfully we are back to the pros and we are on to the feature set, and there are a number of pros with the feature set. Cory, IrisVision, the IrisVision Live 1.0 was one of our most successful devices in terms of improving people's functional vision. People just seem to find it worked the best.
Yeah, I always got the feedback or heard from people that it had very good quality, image quality, and then the field of view was very good with it too.
Definitely, yeah. And so the IrisVision Live 2.0 carries on in that tradition, I'm glad to say. In the regular viewing mode, we have 14 levels of magnification, which is a significant amount of magnification we can apply. And the image quality is very good. Even at those higher levels of magnification, we still have a good quality image. Very good color reproduction and also brightness, which a lot of people really, really do benefit from. So some great benefits there. And in addition to the regular viewing mode, we also do have some of those other modes. There's actually a lot of options here. We can change brightness, we can change contrast, we can have different high contrast color modes, black on white, white on black, yellow and green. We can have outlining modes that look really cool. We can take photos and save them into a photo gallery. So, as there was before, there are some really fantastic features built into this. And we also have a television mode. Now, we still have the regular television viewing mode that you can use for watching an actual television. And there are still those same options to adjust for exposure that can really help bring out the correct colors of the television and make it look great. IrisVision, I think, does the best job of that. But there is also a new feature which hasn't actually completely released yet, but it is a TV streaming feature, Cory.
Yeah, and so 1 second back, for if you don't mind.
Sure.
If we could just beep, beep, just reverse this back. Oh yeah, or rewind that one. It's always been an issue with wearable devices when you look directly at a TV or computer monitor when you're doing like camera looking at another screen, right? That usually has been an issue.
Yeah.
But from my understanding, the IrisVision, as you said, it's always done a really good job at it. And, and part of it, I'm guessing, is that extra exposure and,
that's exactly what it
controls. And so I think that's really good. But then with this new feature, the Vision Cast, they're now selling a separate device.
Well, they're not now selling it. At the time of this video,
it will be a device that you'll need to purchase. I don't believe it's going to come with the IrisVision Live 2.0. You'll have to buy it separately. But it's basically an external device that you are going to plug an HDMI input into. So a TV, a computer, a game box, whatever, Blu-ray player. And it's going to then wirelessly stream that signal to your IrisVision Live 2.0, bringing that right into the headset then, which then will allow you to control magnification and brightness, everything you could do when it's a live camera view. We assume. We don't actually know for sure. But that will be a nice feature. If anybody is familiar with the Vision Buddy, and of course you can check out a video on the Vision Buddy by clicking on the card, it's going to be a similar type of setup to that, and so it'll be interesting to see how well that works. Well, Cory, that's definitely going to be exciting to find out. But now it's time to talk about the cons. Boo-hoo. It is time for the Wrath of Cons, and we have...
Con!
Actually, I'm not sure he was plural, not cons. Well, it's the Wrath of Cons.
Well, actually, he was part of a genetically engineered race. I don't know whether they
all right, we're going to move on. We're moving on to Star Trek. And we do need to talk about...
Cory, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
Okay. I don't know if that's...
It's a quote from Wrath of Khan.
Okay, well, I actually never saw the movie. But, all right, we are done with Star Trek. Here we go. There's just a couple cons for the feature set, which is a good thing. And the one I want to point out is that a few of the features that we saw in the IrisVision Live 1.0 are not on this device.
They're not?
They're not.
Oh.
The two biggest ones being the YouTube capability to search for and watch YouTube videos and OCR. Now, my understanding, the YouTube feature was difficult to maintain. I think the YouTube tie-in and API was an issue, and it probably, whatever. I see why they potentially weren't able to kind of bring that over, or maybe chose not to. But I'm curious why OCR has been left off of this device. Now, maybe it's going to come in the future, but as of today, there is no OCR on the IrisVision Live 2.0.
Yeah, although they do keep on releasing updates, which are getting pushed to the phone, so who knows by the time this video releases.
I was going to say, I believe 2 came in by the time we were starting the video, but so that is very true.
I wanted to talk about another con, which was the menu system. Now, this is actually something similar to the IrisVision Inspire. They have this whole menu system where they've nested levels of things under things under things, and I find it to be annoying to navigate. With the original IrisVision Live 1.0, you would press a button and it would just go to the next mode, next mode, next mode, next mode, next mode. All of those modes were there and available, and there was no menus to navigate per se. However, with this device, it's got this whole menu system, so we can go into a mode, for example, an outlining mode, but now we have to jump into the menus to change what type of outline we want, how thick is the outline, what color is the outline. That's all cool that you can do that, but it just adds this level of complexity. It's the same with our high contrast reading colors. We go into the reading color mode, but now we have to go into the menu to choose the reading color and so on and so forth. So it's just an added level of complexity, and of course it means we have to use the dreaded touch part of the controller to swipe up and down through the menus, and my feelings on that already. So that would be my main con in terms of the features. But I would say the pluses of the features definitely outweigh the minuses.
I think that's always been a really hard thing for companies to balance, is simplicity over being over features and allowing you to customize. How do you allow somebody to customize but keep it simple?
Yeah.
And I think that's, you know, I think IrisVision chose their way, and it sounds like you're saying they chose wrong.
Well, that's my opinion, but it's down to the people.
Maybe we almost need a little clip at the end of Indiana Jones in The Last Crusade. You chose incorrectly, or whatever they say.
We are really going for it with the movie quotes today. All right, well, we've talked about our 3 categories, and now it's time to do our final thoughts.
All right, we've covered all of the categories. We did our pros and cons of all of them. And I think at the end of the day,
we go home.
Luke, we do go home at the end of the day, which is very good. I think at the end of the day, this is a very good device. I think the IrisVision Live 1.0, as we mentioned, was our top device that people chose.
Yeah.
And I think the 2.0 is probably going to continue down that path.
Seems likely.
I think we identified a few cons, but really at the end of the day, most of those cons for me weren't showstoppers. They were more like inconvenience. Hey, if we could design it, this is how we would have done it.
Yeah. I think overall the important thing is how much it improves the user's vision.
Yeah.
And I think this device will probably, again, like you say, be one of the best in terms of just functional vision improvement. I do take offense to some of the design decisions. Maybe that's a little strong, but